It was supposed to be a regular summer afternoon. Grilled corn, smoke in the air, kids running around barefoot, and the sizzle of steaks on the family grill. I showed up, like always, arms full of homemade food, with a quiet smile and a hope. Foolish, naive hope. That maybe this time, someone would say they were glad I came. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. But, as usual, I was the extra. The invisible one. Plates passed around me. Conversations carried on through me. Every inside joke was another reminder that I was outside of whatever this family had become. Then it happened. We were all seated at the long backyard table. Dad was pouring lemonade, Mom fussing over my sister's hair, even though she's 30 and still acts like a princess. I reached for a bowl of salad, and that's when my sister, bright, golden-haired Cassidy, let out a laugh so sharp it sliced through the air. "You know," she said loud enough for the whole table to hear, "if you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice, or care." The table burst into laughter. Even my mother chuckled behind her napkin. My father, without looking at me, muttered, "Come on, Cass. Don't be so harsh." But he didn't say it to defend me. He said it the way you swat a fly, mildly annoyed, not disturbed. I sat there, frozen, the fork in my hand heavy as lead. And in that moment, I understood something painfully clear. They didn't just ignore me. They liked the idea of forgetting me. Cassidy tilted her head with that smug grin. "Just saying, it's not like anyone would miss you." I stood up. I didn't say a word. No shouting, no tears, no dramatic speech. I just placed my untouched plate on the table, straightened my shoulders, and walked out, past the fence, down the gravel driveway. And I didn't look back, not even when I heard Cassidy whisper, "Where's she going now?" Drama queen. I disappeared. Not for a few hours, not for a weekend, for 2 years. No social media, no texts, no updates. I moved 3 states away, changed my number, legally adjusted my name. I found a job at a community foundation. I worked hard, studied harder, and built something of my own. Quietly, in the shadow of the silence they gave me. What they didn't know was this. When I left, I didn't just disappear from their lives emotionally. I left with a key. Cassidy didn't realize that while she was partying through her 20s and racking up debt, our grandfather, the one she never visited, had quietly changed his will. He was the only one who ever really saw me. I used to bring him groceries when no one else bothered. We'd talk for hours while he watched the sunset from his porch. When he passed, I was the sole inheritor. Cassidy never found out. Not yet. Not until the lawyer called her about the inheritance meeting. And I was already on my way, not just to collect what was mine, but to rewrite the ending they never saw coming. The meeting was held in a bland legal office downtown. Gray walls, plastic chairs, a vending machine humming too loudly in the hallway. But the tension in that room? It could have set fire to steel. I walked in wearing a simple black dress and quiet confidence. My hair was pinned up, my heels soft on the linoleum. Across the room sat my parents, pale, aged a little more than I remembered. Mom clutched her purse like it was a lifeline. Dad looked up at me like he was seeing a ghost. And there she was. Cassidy, still golden, still smug. Except now she looked confused and annoyed, like someone had told her the cameras weren't rolling on her life anymore. "You came?" she said, as if surprised I'd been invited. "I was requested," I replied, calm. The lawyer, a stern man named Mr. Harrow, adjusted his glasses and began. "As the executor of Mr. Clarence Hammond's estate," he said, "I'd like to thank all of you for being here today. Mr. Hammond left behind a sizable inheritance and a very specific will. I'll now read it per his wishes." Everyone leaned forward. My parents, suddenly hopeful, Cassidy, practically giddy. She tapped her manicured nails on the table, impatient. "To my granddaughter Cassidy," the will read, "I leave the photograph she took with me on her 10th birthday. It remains the last time she visited without needing something." Cassidy's smile fell like a brick. To my daughter Elaine and son-in-law Thomas, I leave a copy of my old house's blueprints, since they always had plans to tear it apart anyway. My mother gasped. My father said nothing. And to the only person who ever sat with me when I was in pain, who never asked for anything but gave me time, laughter, and dignity. I leave the rest, my property, liquid assets, and the scholarship fund I created in her name. May she never again be told she doesn't matter. The room was silent. Mr. Harrow placed a thick envelope in front of me. My name was embossed in gold ink. Cassidy let out a breath that sounded like a curse. "What kind of joke is this?" she snapped. "You're giving everything to her. She doesn't even exist in this family anymore." I looked at her, eyes calm. "Exactly! You ran away," my mother barked. "You abandoned us, and now you show up for the money?" "No," I said quietly. "I didn't abandon you. You erased me long before I ever left, and Grandpa didn't leave me money. He left me proof that I was never invisible. Not to everyone." Cassidy stood, furious. "You're still a nobody. You think money changes that? You think this makes you better than me?" I leaned forward slightly, not smug, just honest. "Number. But it makes me free." That's when I pulled out the deed, not to Grandpa's house. That had already been sold. I had used part of the inheritance to purchase the land next door to the family home. The one Cassidy always bragged would be hers one day. It was slated for expansion. She had plans to build a guest house and an entertainment patio. Not anymore. "Construction begins next week," I said, sliding the paperwork across the table. "I'm opening a grief center in Grandpa's name. It'll be loud, busy, full of people, just how Cassidy likes it. Next door." My mother's lips parted in horror. "You're ruining her future," she hissed. "No," I said. "I'm just making room for mine." The lawyer began packing up. Cassidy tried to speak, but words failed her. She looked at me like a curtain had finally been pulled back, and she didn't like what she saw. Not the quiet, eager-to-please shadow they once mocked, but a woman rebuilt by absence, polished by silence, armed with clarity. I didn't need applause. I had closure, but the final twist hadn't dropped yet. That was saved for the graduation ceremony Cassidy had smugly invited the family to next week, the one where she'd be receiving her merit-based award. Cassidy's graduation was held in one of the most pretentious event halls in the city. Tall glass windows, chandeliers so bright they looked like falling stars. Every inch screamed success, celebration, and look at us. My parents arrived in coordinated outfits, clinging to the illusion of a perfect family. They beamed, arms linked with Cassidy like they were royalty arriving at court. They didn't know I would be there, or that I was on the board. You see, a month before the ceremony, I'd used a portion of the inheritance to anonymously donate to the university's development fund, enough to be offered a board seat and influence over student awards. Cassidy's merit-based award? Suspended indefinitely. The official reason, integrity review. But the truth? Karma showed up in a tailored suit. I arrived just before the program began. Heads turned. Some recognized me. Others didn't. But they noticed the woman in the red dress walking like she belonged. And I did. I'd built this version of myself from every insult, every slap, every time someone told me I didn't matter. My heels echoed down the marble aisle like punctuation marks in a statement that had been years in the making. I didn't sit with the family. I sat on stage, next to the dean. Cassidy's name was printed in the program under Outstanding Community Impact. But just before her name was called, the dean leaned into the mic and made an announcement. "Due to recent developments, we are reassessing our award distribution today. Instead, we'd like to recognize a contributor whose dedication, generosity, and resilience embody everything this institution stands for." I didn't expect it. When they said my name, there was a beat of silence, then applause, confused at first, then thunderous. Cassidy's face froze. My mother blinked like she'd seen a ghost. My father actually turned to me, but his face was unreadable. a statue carved out of pride, shame, and shock all at once. I stood, thanked the dean, and took the microphone. I was told once, I began, that if I disappeared, no one would care. But the truth is, disappearing wasn't the end. It was the beginning of learning how to be seen. I paused, letting the silence settle in. Some of us grow up in families where being different, sensitive, or quiet makes you disposable. But what I've learned is this: you don't need to fight for space in someone else's story. You can write your own. I caught Cassidy's eyes for a moment. Some inherit titles, others inherit strength. That was it. No melodrama, no revenge speech, just truth, delivered calmly, publicly, and with a smile. After the ceremony, people approached me to shake hands, to offer congratulations, to share stories of their own family wounds. I felt seen, but more importantly, I felt whole. My parents didn't say a word. They left quietly, my father gripping my mother's wrist a little too tightly. Cassidy stormed out ahead of them, her heels tapping like gunshots on the marble. But I didn't chase them. I didn't need to. Later that night, I returned to the old house. Not theirs, Grandpa's. I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, the same way he and I used to. There was no one left to impress, no one left to beg love from. I had already inherited what mattered, not money, not buildings, but dignity. And finally, peace. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching.